Good morning, friends. People who sometimes find it difficult to hear me. I understand that things have improved since I got my new microphone. I don't know. That's the new microphone, and so it sounds better to me when I listen to it. But you can keep giving me feedback on whether or not it's working well for you. I decided to make a video this morning, even with, I didn't have my hairstylist come in and get my hair just right for the movie making process. So my apologies at looking like I usually do in the morning. And I may look a little bit more disheveled as a result of spending 3 hours in class with my teacher, a mystic trauma therapist, Thomas Hübl. So I'm part of a 5-month course on trauma healing. I know a lot of you are going like, oh yeah, how do I sign up for that? And I would say it's definitely for the brave of heart, which I am. I'm very brave in heart. Because I feel like, because I spent 60 of my first 74 years in a state of panic, and through learning a lot of healing processes and having, other level guides helping me in learning these processes, I eventually was able to come out of a prolonged state of panic in 2011. I'm pretty sure it was 2011. That finally, it just cleared and I wasn't in panic anymore. And so my life proceeded along after that very differently. When I was in a constant state of panic, something was always chasing me that was moving me forward. And so it was very motivating, and I got a lot done because I was always being chased forward. I was always running away from failure and from, perceived bankruptcy or whatever it was that my mind was making up to make sense of my terror and to force me forward. We can either be drawn by the future or we can be shoved into it. And fear is what shoves us into it, and love is what draws us forward. And so I prefer love, although I must admit that the past 4 months have been very trying for me, in that I have a whole nother level of fear that's been coming out. And as many of you know, I was asked to set up what I've called the World Healing Field. I was asked to set up a healing field around the earth. Just imagine what I was thinking when I was asked to do that. You're looking at this guy. This guy doesn't create world healing fields, but they convinced me that this guy could. And so I did. At the end of January of 2020, I set up, they just needed a body and form willing to say these words they told me to say. So I asked that there be a field, a world healing field placed around the earth. And then I called in the various beings that I was told that were going to hold this healing space for the earth, for the world. That went in the end of January of 2020, and it has continued now for over 5 years, seeing that we're in February. I imagine it's just going to stay in place after March 24th, when the 28 years of cleansing completes. So March 24th of 2025, 28 years of cleansing, which were initiated on March 23rd of 1997 with the incarnation of Abrahamanad, the soul of the earth. And Abrahamanad downloaded this information into my consciousness that there'd be a 28-year cycle of cleansing. 97 to 2004 would be physical, 2004 to 2011 would be mental, 2011 to 2018 would be emotional, 2018 to 2025 would be spiritual. So we have basically 49 days, if my math is correct. 24 days in March, and this is the third, so 25 days in February. So 24 and 25 comes to 49 in my mathematics. So today I'm going to set up a healing field, and I'm going to work the last part. So I set up a healing field first thing this morning about 5:30 or something, because I woke up once again. I was talking about panic. I woke up once again. I'd had a couple days off from panic, but this morning it was like, oh, okay, it's back on again. So I woke up in a state of panic, first started working with it with breath, then realized it would be helpful if I had a healing field opened up within the world healing field. So that was opened, and I've been working with those energetics since then. And I thought it'd be useful to work with these energies. So if you want to work with these energies, because you'll work with these energies if this is an event that's valuable for you to go back to. So what I suggest you do is state these things out loud. I connect to my deep self. I connect to my higher self. I connect to my highest self. I ground myself to the healing center of the earth. I open myself to the healing power of the One. I choose to let go of anything no longer useful to me. And if you want to have some help from the seventh dimensional beings, the Hathors, you can state, I choose to work with the Hathors. And then you can say this, or I'll say it for all of us. We ask to be placed in a field of protection while we do this work. And we ask the higher self to take us through the portal of time to the event that would be of the highest good to release and integrate at this time. And I invite all souls affected by this event to return to the event, to release and integrate the energy of the event for themselves. And I ask that they be placed in a field of protection while they do their work. And upon arrival at the event, I ask the higher self to assist us to release and integrate all energies of the event, gently and easily, fully and completely, on all levels and through all space and time. Okay, so this is a point in which if you felt things beginning to move, you're connected to this field. There's thousands, maybe millions of souls connected to this event that they're clearing. So you can hit the pause button if you want and come back later on to do the closing remarks when we bring the new energies into the earth for the upliftment of the consciousness of the entire world and all the living inhabitants of that world, be they human, animal, mineral, plant-based life forms, all the life forms. Okay, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate an exercise. So I've had some really lovely interaction with one of my subscribers who asked me some questions. I gave him some answers. He did some things and had some positive experiences. I made a post about it because I felt it'd be really useful for people to read a real person's experience, even though I didn't put his name in there because I just have his moniker. I just didn't put that in there. But because he wrote it publicly as a comment on one of my videos, and I responded it publicly as a comment on my videos, but I felt like both his questions, my suggestions, his experience was really useful for me to read and might be useful for you. So I made it as a post. So that's available to you. I made it today. So it's a recent post, and I explained to you why I put this interaction as a post, because I felt it would be healing for others to just read about it. It's not very long. And one of the things that he mentioned in his comment to me about how he had made some changes, he talked to me about utilizing the process that I had suggested of taking our story that has emotions attached. It has physical stuff and emotions and mental stuff maybe about it, maybe spiritual stuff about it, but these stories that are kind of charged. And so I'm going to do a demonstration of what we do with these charged stories. So we have a story, we have emotions, and it doesn't really matter which hand you put. Whatever you do is right. You put stories here, the emotions here, the stories here, emotions here. Whatever you do, all you want to do is separate the emotions from the story. That's the bottom line. If you got another way to do it other than the way I'll demonstrate, that's fine too. Here's where I'm going to demonstrate it. So I'm going to take this chunk of energy right here, and I'm going to tune into it from my deep self. I'm going to ask my body, what is the story that's causing this contraction? And then I'm going to just bring the story up. I'm going to mention the story if it becomes conscious. So the story is, I will never be enough. You might have that feeling about yourself. You'll never be enough. What's the point? It's hopeless. We'll never be enough. Okay, there's the story. And then the emotions. Yeah. So now you start to feel those emotions about I'll never be enough. And you feel the emotions about that. And then I feel the pain of those emotions. So I'm going to separate those emotions from this story that I'll never be enough. And when you get your hands arm's length apart, something changes. You feel a change. Story's still there, emotions are still there, but they're separate. At which point you can release those emotions, and then you can release that story. And you can notice if something changed right there in you. And if not, do it again. I mean, we didn't learn, some of us, actually, some of you possibly learned to ride your bike, first try you just rode your bike. Many of us crashed that bike any number of times, even with training wheels, we could crash. We learned to crash the bike because it's a good thing to know what to do if you're crashing a bike, how to jump off and how not to get tangled up in the spokes or whatever. But anyway, when you're doing these things, separating these stories and these emotions, make sure you let go of it completely, and then let go of that story completely as you can. And if you're releasing the idea that you'll never ever get it right, or you'll never do anything right, that it's hopeless, whatever, then, just do it again. Feel the emotions, let them go. Hear the words, let them go. Come back in. See if it feels more movement, less contraction into there. And then I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to say to my body, what's this story? What is this story about? This story is about there will never be an end to suffering. And here's the emotions, the suffering emotions, the grief, the loss, the terror, the suffering, the emotions that we have just not released and integrated, that continue to help us carry this suffering. But we're just going to separate. There'll never be an end of suffering. There's the story. Story's out to one side. The emotions, the suffering is out to the other side. And we release the emotions. And we release the story. And we can come right back and just notice, did it change this somewhat at all? Any bit of it? And we can mention again, there will never be an end to suffering. And if you still feel some suffering, then separate it again. And release more suffering. Release and integrate more of the suffering of unresolved events in your past. But your unresolved events in your past are present. They're always there until they're resolved. And then they're there, but they're resolved. So you let go of those emotions, those suffering, pain, grief, loss, trauma, betrayal, whatever. Release those energies, release that story that there'll never be an end to suffering, and check your throat. And I'm not saying there is going to be an end to suffering. I have no idea. I'm obviously not there myself, so I can't comment that, yes, at a certain point, there will be an end to suffering. That's not kind of the point of this, as far as I can tell. The point of this is there can be an end to some of our suffering by releasing the suffering and releasing the story that there'll never be an end to suffering. And you may say, well, but if we release the story that there'll never be an end to suffering, how come I still feel like I'm suffering? Question is, do you feel like you're suffering less since starting this exercise? That's all that matters. Does this feel less constricted, less tight? That's what matters. You're taking these steps. You're taking any step. Any step you take is a valuable step in your healing. Any healing you do is a valuable step in your healing. So let's just bring it back again, not bring back any of those energies, but bring back the concept there'll never be an end to suffering. And how does it feel now? Is there less energy there? Is there less energy there? Is there less energy there? So let's let that energy that's there go into the hand. So I'm now holding that suffering and that story, there'll never be an end to suffering, and I'm going to separate them again and let go of some more suffering and let go of the story, there'll never be an end to suffering. And come back and notice if it changed this. If it didn't change it enough for you, then just do it again. It's like, get back up on the bike, get back up on the horse. the whole thing, you got to get back up on the horse. One time I had a new horse, really a lovely horse. The horse and I ended up becoming best friends. I had a horse farm at one point, and this was, I think, the third horse in our stable. My daughters were riders, and we happened to be in a position to be able to, first of all, afford one pony, and then eventually afford another horse. And eventually that horse didn't turn out to be good enough for the competition, so we ended up getting another horse. And it was horses. They're lovely creatures. They're lovely to be around. They're expensive to maintain, and but this particular horse, just had purchased it, brought it in, and I, was a fairly decent horseback rider, and I ended up getting on the horse. The horse ended up throwing me, and I was glad I was wearing a padded vest, to keep my ribs from being cracked when I hit the ground. But I knew, get back on the horse. So let's just say it's the third time the horse threw me off that I decided not to get back on the horse. Kind of was thinking about that Superman character, Chris Reeves or something, who was the son of Steve Reeves, who was the original Superman. And Chris Reeves, I think, was his son. And he ended up taking up horseback riding later in life and got dumped on his head and was paralyzed from the neck down, I think is the story. So anyway, I had that thought in mind, is this a good time to just see if there might be a problem with the horse before there's a problem with you, more of a problem. Turned out that there was a problem, and it was corrected, and the horse became a good riding horse after he had some dental work. Maybe I'll become a good riding horse after I have some dental work. Okay, a little bit more energy showing up here. Story, emotions, separate them. Release the emotions, release the story. I'm going to now go back to the event, check the energy of the event that we went back to, release it, integrate the energy of the event, and it is released and integrated. So I'm going to do this little piece that's at the end of a healing session. So I ask the higher self to assist all the souls that return to the event to combine with that part of their soul that had remained at the event, and bring that combined soul back into their bodies with all of the wisdom, power, and clarity of that combined soul, plus the compassion, creativity, kindness, connection, and peace of that combined soul. And I would ask that soul to ground itself into the healing center of the earth, and feel that, if you can, that grounding of this more full self that came back from the event, more full self, soul self of you, combined, you, combining with you, coming back into you, and then grounding yourself into the healing center of the earth. And then as a group of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, who knows how many souls went back to this event, I don't keep track of them. We ask all the souls to ground themselves into the healing center of the earth and open up the portal for the delivery of the new energies into the earth at this time. And I ask the higher self to bring these new energies in through this portal and through these human beings who are willing to participate in this healing work. And then I ask that these new energies be activated in the earth, and I let the universe and beyond know that this has been done and that it's good. So that's the healing session for today. Hopefully people that came in early and paused it will be able to find this after lots of words. But another exercise just to work with, and this is the one that I had suggested to my subscriber as an exercise in an earlier video that then they used in this video to actually get some results. And let me just say that after, I would say I became conscious of working with these beings when I was 7, now 74, so 67 years I've been off and on working with these various beings, a lot of different beings, and I would just say that I'm better at this work. But I have a goal to master it. And the way that we master something is we keep getting better at it. And eventually, at some point, we may feel some mastership. And at that point, we get to decide whether we can rest on our laurels, or even as a master, we can get better at it. And so when I reach that point where I can say, well, I feel like I've mastered this, I'll let you know that now I'm just going to kick back and do it. Or I'll let you know, like, oh, there's masters that are the masters, whatever. There's this whole level of consciousness. And if you love something, why not keep doing it? And if you don't love something, is it time to stop doing it? If you don't love suffering, then maybe it's time to let go of suffering. It's an option. Okay, that's the video for today. We'll see how long this takes to upload. And now let's just have another lovely day of change. All right, be well and know I appreciate you very much.